I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Joe. House Digital.
Maserati Rick in Detroit, convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude, strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game, Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes, Craig Pettis in the M-Town, Sal Magluta with the boat game, Falcone with the cocaine, like Freeway Ricky with the plug game, like Monster Cody in South Central, Larry Davis from close range.
We're gun runners. Let's go run some guns.
Is that legal? It's not illegal.
God bless Shady's America!
The story of two young Jewish stoner arm dealers from Miami who take advantage of a war-stricken Middle East for their own material gains. What could possibly go wrong? And crazy enough, based on a true story, first illustrated by Guy Larson's viral article The Stoner Arms Dealers, and his subsequent book Arms and the Dudes. War Dog shows just how far the American dream can go in taking advantage of an international war. So let's explain the ending here. But first, the whole deal about how Jonah Hill's character launches his arms-dealing empire. So the way companies grow is by selling to as many people as possible. But Efraim realized that he could succeed by selling to only one customer, the US military. And no business or government agency buys and sells as much shit as the Department of Defense. And by law, every Pentagon purchase order is required to be open to the public. And under the Bush administration, small businesses like Efraim's AEY, which nobody still knows the meaning of, maybe it's not even an acronym, maybe rapper Gucci Mane stole it as his catchphrase. Hey! Anyway, under the Bush administration, small businesses like AEY could partake and were guaranteed a share of the arms deal. Cha-ching, right? No, seriously, here's the link. It's also in the description below of the contracts awarded to various large and small businesses. Most, if not all, ranging in the tens of hundreds of millions of dollars. Why the fuck am I sitting here making YouTube videos? Oh yeah, because money is the root of all evil and can't really buy you happiness, but it can buy you a sports bike. And honestly, have you ever seen anybody sad on a sports bike? But back to the movie. So of course, spoiler warning if you haven't seen the film. So did Bradley Cooper's character plan on screwing Jonah Hill and Miles Teller's character from the start? And how exactly did Efraim and David end up in the arms of the FBI? And what's life like for Efraim, Diveroli, and David Packhouse now? So back to the Bradley Cooper question. Yes, he did intentionally screw them over, because just like Efraim and David, Bradley Cooper's character is simply in it for the money. That's why he charges them a 400% markup on ammo, being that he only paid 2.5 cents per round, and he charges Efraim and David 10 cents a round. He was just playing the middleman to these middlemen. It's middlemanception. Also, fun fact, you know when you go to a bar and you pay $5 a shot, when the bottle costs maybe $30? Yeah, that's about a 400% markup too. Anyway, Bradley Cooper, having all these arms connections but nobody to sell to, since he's on a terrorist watch list, needs someone like Efraim and David to continue being the entrepreneur he is, and at the end of the film, feeling bad, he decides to give Miles Teller's character 100 grand just to smooth things over. Like, you know, hey, sorry I ruined your life and made you go back to being a massage therapist and screwing you out of millions of dollars with your partner, but here's 100 grand, we good? Alright. But how exactly does the FBI get the jump on Efraim and David? Well, it all started with Efraim not paying the box packaging guy for illegally repacking the Chinese AK ammo, and he's just like, well, screw you guys, I'm calling the police. And Efraim's silent partner negotiated a deal where as long as he wore a wire and got them to confess to everything that they did, that he would get a reduced sentence. This leads to Efraim getting 4 years of jail time and David only getting 7 months house arrest. But where are they now? Well, Efraim is still an entrepreneur and an author. He wrote the tell-all memoir called Once a Gun Runner, which you can buy a hardcover for a little over $25. Yeah, I see where the film got the whole Scarface vibe now. He's also part of an ongoing suit with Warner Brothers Pictures for the War Dogs movie. And as far as David Packhouse, he invented the Beat Buddy. That's not even a joke, it's actually really cool. It's a little beat maker for guitar players. Crazy, right? But that's everything I have for the ending explained of War Dogs. Tons of Scarface Easter eggs, and just a great movie that shows when you give some young kids a bunch of money, a bunch of entertaining events are sure to follow.
On one other subject, I want to say a word about something I discussed last week. And I want to show you the photograph of a 22-year-old young man. His name is Efraim Diveroli. He's the CEO, yes, he's the president of a firm that was awarded $300 million in taxpayer contracts to provide weapons to the Afghan fighters in Afghanistan. Our department, our State Department, our military said the American taxpayers shall pay for weapons to be given to the Afghanis, the fighters in Afghanistan. Well, that's probably another debate, but one I think most people would say, if they're fighting for freedom in Afghanistan, let's help them. So we're going to help them by providing guns, and bullets and other kinds of weapons, and a contract is given to a company in Miami, Florida that had been a shell company for some years. $300 million was given to that company. Turns out the company is run by a 22-year-old man named Efraim Diveroli, and by the way, his vice president was a massage therapist named David Pacuz, a former masseur, and between the two of them, they got $300 million in taxpayer contracts. I'll tell you who gave it to them. The Army Sustainment Command did it. And I want the general in charge of the Army Sustainment Command to come to the Congress and explain, how do you give $300 million in contracts to what had been a shell company, now run by a 22-year-old and a 25-year-old massage therapist who apparently has since quit the company, and in exchange for being granted immunity will talk to investigators. What did they do with the money? Well, the Afghan fighters, and I've got some photographs of it that, in fact, I'm going to see if we can get the photographs of what the product looks like that they provided the Afghan fighters. As I'm waiting for those charts, this is the building in Florida where the office of this company was that got $300 million. $300 million. Now, the office is just an office inside this building. No markings on the door. This 22-year-old president says he's the only employee at this point, but they got $300 million. Now, here's a sample of what showed up from that $300 million. They sent ammunition to the Afghan fighters that turns out in some cases to have been mid-1960s ammunition made in China. Almost worthless. But we paid the $300 million. Now, I mention this again, as I have so often.
Yo, it's your boy Popalot. We back. Mobb ties. We headed back to Miami with it. And we about to count a whole lot of motherfucking paper niggas. The nigga we about to get into it today with is going to be a gentleman by the name of Efraim Diveroli. Now, a little bit about Efraim. He was a money-getting gangster. You know, sometimes we cover the shoot-'em-up bang-bangs. Sometimes we cover the niggas that moved 10 bricks last night. Today, we gonna cover a nigga that used his mind to bust a jug. I'm gonna say he counted up 200 million, 300 million, excuse me, my bad. I left off a whole 100. But the way he pretty much did it is, at one point in time when Bush was in office, the government was, I guess they had to open up bidding, almost like a bidding war for contracts for the military to the public. And opening up those contracts, they attracted a 21-year-old from Miami that was smart on his shit and pretty much created a company where he would buy some of those contracts and pretty much get rich in the process. It was one problem with that. From my understanding, he got one huge order where he pretty much tried to swindle the United States government and sell them decades old ammunition, in turn, which led to him being responsible for violating a peace treaty, which in turn led to him being responsible for violating the embargo that the United States had with China, going for how long? I don't know. I'm a historian by nature, but I don't know how long that shit goes back. But yeah, so yeah, that shit just happened. And he got sentenced. But believe it or not, we covered all the niggas. How many people we covered on Mobb Ties? And we almost at episode 100. Now, what I say he busted him for, 300 million? He only got 4 years in prison for that shit. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb Ties.
Dealer and author. His company, AEY Incorporated, was a major weapons contractor for the U.S. Department of Defense. The U.S. government suspended AEY for violating its contract after AEY provided 42-year-old substandard and unserviceable Chinese ammunition and attempted to rebrand and repackage it, thus violating the American arms embargo against China. As a result of the publicity surrounding the contract and the age of the arms dealers, Diveroli was 21 and partner David Packhouse was 25 when AEY landed the ammunition deal. The United States Army began a review of its contracting procedures. 2016 Todd Phillips drama comedy film, War Dogs, in which he is portrayed by Jonah Hill. Diveroli returned home in March 2001 at the age of 16. After an argument with his uncle, he told his father he wanted to open a business specializing in arms, ammunition trading, and defense contracts with the U.S. government. He convinced his father to sell him a shell company, AEY Incorporated, named after the first initials of him and his siblings, which his father had incorporated as a small printing business, but had not done anything within years. Diveroli showed a penchant for arms dealing and quickly made a name for himself within the industry. His young age and apparent talent led local media outlets to label him as an arms wunderkind. Diveroli struggled with drug addiction and was also labeled as a stoner arms dealer by the media. During the Cold War, the world was locked in an arms race. Millions of weapons were stashed throughout Eastern Europe, ready for a war with the West. When the Cold War ended, and the immediate threat of violence subsided, arms dealers started moving these vast amounts of weapons. The sales that followed formed the grey market where legitimate government-sanctioned buyers could procure arms illegally. The Pentagon needed access to this new aftermarket in order to arm the militias it was creating in Iraq and Afghanistan. The trouble was, it couldn't go into such a murky underworld on its own. It needed proxies to do its dirty work. Companies like AEY Diveroli started working during this period of heavy arms trading as a teenager in a one-room apartment in Miami. Equipped with nothing more than a laptop, he sought to enter the industry from the seat of his couch. He began surfing solicitations on fbo.gov, or FedBizOps, which is a government website where contracts are posted. He began by bidding on small contracts with the financial help of Ralph Merrill, with whom he did business during his time working for his uncle. By the age of 18, Diveroli had become a self-made millionaire by continuing to beat out big corporations like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed and BAE Systems. In the words of Rolling Stone, Diveroli had an appetite for risk and all-devouring ambition. After steadily increasing the size of his contracts and developing a track record of success, Diveroli's company AEY Incorporated was awarded a $298 million contract by the Pentagon to provide arms and munitions to the Allied forces in Afghanistan. In order to fulfill the U.S. government contracts, Diveroli soon found himself dealing with dubious weapons traders, crooked diplomats, and soldiers of fortune, negotiating deals with foreign defense ministers, holding meetings at embassies, and taking calls from high-ranking army officials. On March 27, 2008, the U.S. government suspended AEY Incorporated for infringing upon the terms of its contract, in violation of a pre-existing arms embargo. The company was accused of supplying ammunition manufactured in China to the Afghan National Army and police. United States Army documents showed that the company totaled more than $200 million in contracts to supply ammunition, assault rifles, and other weapons in 2007. As a result of publicity surrounding the contract, the United States Army began a review of its contracting procedures. The United States House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform ruled the ammunition unserviceable. AEY had also failed to perform on numerous previous contracts, including sending potentially unsafe helmets and failure to deliver 10,000 Beretta pistols to Iraq. Diveroli's former partner David Packhouse, and Ralph Merrill, the group's former chief financier, later filed separate lawsuits against Diveroli seeking payment of millions of dollars they say they were owed in connection to the weapons contract with the U.S. government. a company Diveroli owns, Mobb Works, continued selling arms while he awaited trial for conspiracy. In late August 2008, he pleaded guilty on one count of conspiracy, and was sentenced to 4 years in prison on January 4, 2011. He was further sentenced for possessing a weapon while out on bond, and had his overall sentence reduced for assisting in the investigation of the offense. Diveroli's former partner David Packhouse was sentenced to 7 months house arrest. The story of Diveroli's arms deals is the subject of the Todd Phillips comedy drama film War Dogs, starring Jonah Hill as Diveroli and Miles Teller as his partner, David Packhouse. In 2016, Diveroli filed a lawsuit against Warner Bros. Entertainment Incorporated, director Todd Phillips, producer Bradley Cooper, and others, seeking to block release of the film. Diveroli's suit against Warner Bros. Claimed that the basis for the film was taken from his self-published memoir Once a Gun Runner. For more information, please follow the link below the video.